First thing we did right before the break was I wanted to show you the kind of proximity issues to the background, and now we're just going to use that as part of our overall flow. As we see things are too bright, we're going to move farther away, or we're going to change up the lighting so that we eliminate lighting from the backdrop. I've got at least 5 or 6 more sets that I want to show you using different tools. So we'll just get right to it. This next one that I'm going to use is a beauty dish. I'm going to show you a couple of different looks for a beauty dish. The traditional way that you use a beauty dish is right in front of the subject. Right? In fact, I'll probably show that as maybe the first one, but then I want to show you an alternative use of the beauty dish, which will be behind the subject. So we'll kind of use a rim light scenario with some reflectors up front. So lighting from the back and then a reflector in the front. But before we do that, before we break the rule, I want to teach you the rule. So I'm going to show you the proper way to use a beauty dish, and then we'll deviate. So Jeff, come on forward again. Thank you for your good nature and your willingness to be our model for today. Appreciate it greatly. And for this one, we're just going to have you kind of point this way a little bit more. How's that? Good. Excellent. And I'm going to move the stool a tiny bit this way. All right, like that. All right, you comfy?
You bet.
You bet. Okay, good. Traditional way to use a beauty dish. And again, this is not actually a beauty dish, but it produces pretty much the same effect. This is the Photix Raha 65. It's just fun to say. I've got it on a boom arm, and the reason why a lot of times we use a boom arm in the studio is because you don't have to fight the light stands. Notice the first segment, I was always fighting that light stand. It's kind of smack dab in the middle. And so this, see, it puts the light stand off to the side, and now I can work, and I'm unfettered, and I'm free. One thing that I encourage you to always do is to use a sandbag whenever you're using a boom arm. This is seriously about ready to fall right onto his head. So, with your permission, I'm going to grab a sandbag. You don't have to spend a lot of money on sandbags, but they're not worth their weight in gold, but if they were, we'd all be buying lots of sandbags. But you just put it on the opposite leg here to kind of weight the thing down. Especially important if you are outside and it's a little bit windy. So, all right, let me talk through mentally what I'm thinking here. My goal is to produce a nice catch light in his eyes. We're all about the dramatic look, so I want a lot of shadowing, a lot of texture on his face from the shadow information, and I want the background to be as dark as possible. So I'm going to set up my light here so that the light doesn't really spill onto that background. So I'm going to rotate this down ever so slightly, just like that, to kind of prevent the light from hitting the background, control it as much as I can. I'm going to take a look here at my flash power and see where I'm at. I'm currently at 1/8 power, which I'm okay with. And I'll move it slightly in closer to him. Right there. Okay. And safety first. I always just kind of feel it and make sure it isn't going to fall onto my model. And it looks like we're not going to tip over. I'm happy with all of that. Grab my camera. And I think we're still tethered. Yep, all the tethering looks like it's working. And I can already see I'm off a little bit on my beauty dish, but that's okay. I'll make a mistake first and then fix it in a second. Here we go. F5.6, a 200th of a second, ISO 200. And one quick test of the light. Everything's working. Okay, here we go. Look right into the camera. Bring your chin down a little bit and actually let's bring the shoulder towards me. Just rotate around. There we go. Yeah, nice. Cool. And this is my exposure check. So I got to quickly go into Lightroom. Remember earlier today I was talking about how we can use Lightroom to judge the brightness of that background. A lot of times your computer screens lie to you. For example, the screen that we have here in the studio tends to show us a brighter photo than normally really exists. So you're like, is that really gray or is it darker than it actually is? So what I do is I go over here to my histogram and I take my mouse, and I just move that mouse around in the screen. And then what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for these RGB values between 0 and 100. And if they're close to 0, that means I've done a really good job of making my black black. Anything less than 5, anything less than 10 will eventually get you to the point where you can have solid black, especially after you finish post-processing it inside a Lightroom. So that's pretty good. It'd be nice to be a little bit darker, and I'll show you in just a second how I make that a little bit darker. All right, let's look closely on his eyes. Let's check that catch light. Great, looking good overall. Don't you love it? Everyone's yeah, it's painful, I know. I feel your pain. Yeah, that's a good look overall. Now let's talk about, let me put this thing back onto my clamp so I can work efficiently. Let's talk about positioning, fine-tuning the position of that beauty dish. If I go higher, what do you think is going to happen? Well, I'm going to create more deep shadows underneath his eyes. And that might be a look that I'm after. Sometimes for sometimes for men, it's okay. For women, not so much. So let me just show you what this looks like when he's looking straight at the camera. It's almost like a shower head and light coming down from on high. Okay, it's not going to fall. Good. I'm going to have you take one look right at the camera, and then after that, I'm going to have you kind of look up into the light, okay? All right, just get this position just perfect. Working with these beauty dishes, the positioning of the light is critical in order to get the look you're after. Because if you miss it by a few inches, well, then the light's off of the subject. Okay, so this one you're looking right at the camera. Good. No fire. Houston, we have no fire. Okay, we'll try that again. Did it go? Okay, good. Okay, this one's right above him. There we go. Move that off. Let's go to full frame. Okay, so now you can see we got these dark shadows underneath his eyes. So that's not necessarily a great look. Sometimes we want that look, though. You know, sometimes we really want a sinister look. Imagine someone in a hoodie and their face is mostly shadowed with deep dark shadows underneath their eyes, their eye sockets. You can see how we're starting to get to that feel overall. For him, specifically in this scenario, it's probably not the greatest look overall. But let's say I still like the higher light position. I can work with that a little bit by having him look up. So just move your nose up a little bit more. I'm going to stand, get my apple box. Multiple apple boxes. Yeah, about right there. Okay, good. Now I'm breaking another rule that I talked about earlier about splitting the height, but hey, we're photographers. We love breaking rules. Good. Why would I do this? Well, by biasing the light more downwards, I'm preventing light from hitting the background. And I can work with that by having him kind of look up into the photo while still getting these catch lights and not getting these deep sockets under the eyes. So the real reason I'm showing you all this is because I know a lot of you are shooting in a spare bedroom, a lot of you are shooting in a living room, and those types of scenarios. You can get around these tight space constraints just by how you're positioning lights overall. I'm going to bring this back down, and I'm going to bring a reflector in, again showing kind of the proper use of a beauty dish. You're very trusting of me moving this up and down. Thank you. There we go. And I'm going to rotate this about there. Does that feel about centered on you? Yeah, pretty good.
But pretty close.
Okay, yeah. Needs to come forward, about like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And now I'm going to use a white reflector. At one of the breaks, we were talking with some of the students in the live audience here, and we were talking about kind of the difference between the silver reflector and the white reflector. If I use a white reflector down low, the reflection is going to look pretty normal. Whereas if I use a silver reflector down low, it's going to look a little bit more, I don't know what the right word is, Alfred Hitchcocky, with the light coming from the bottom. And that's an okay look if you want it, but I'm not after that today. Okay, so I just don't want to whack him in the face when I lower this down. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to move this in close to you. About there. Great. Go ahead and lean forward a little bit. Right there. Cool. And I'm realizing here I want it to actually probably be a little bit higher and a little bit more angled to him. So raise this up a tiny bit and lower this down. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Go ahead and bring that hand back right there. Let's see how that looks. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Nice. So now we're going to get a little more shadow, fill in the shadows underneath his face. A little bit less dramatic look overall. We're loading. There we go. So we'll compare those two. One without the reflector underneath and, come on, these are big files. Isn't that pixelated image beautiful? How about we let that load and we'll come back to it in a second. There we go. Oh, there we go. So you can see underneath his neck what we've done. We've added in some shadow. Maybe you want it, maybe you don't. What I was mostly after was underneath his eyes, and I think I got too much underneath, oops, sorry, audio people. I got too much underneath his neck. So I need to be careful about that. So maybe rather than clamshell lighting, which this is clamshell lighting, a light source from up high and then a reflector down low, maybe we don't do that. Maybe we go more towards side reflection so we can actually manipulate those shadows. But before I go to more of that side look, I want to show you with the beauty dish in the back and then the reflector up front. So this is a non-traditional use of the beauty dish. Okay, we're good. Everybody's good. And this, one of the reasons I love using wireless flash transmitters is I don't have to worry about cables on my lighting equipment. Ideally, I'd also be tethered wirelessly to my computer. That would help things out a lot, but that's never as reliable. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over here. So if we're thinking through what the plan is, visually, my goal is to get a nice rim light off of his shoulder, and if I don't reflect light back onto him, his face will be in deep silhouette. Let's just see what that looks like. Let me show you what that looks like with no reflector first, and then we're going to build the photo step by step. It's a real common approach that I use as a photographer, just to get the impact of the key light and then start seeing what the other stuff looks like when I add it in. Okay, here we go. And as you'll see here, the light's just going to be over his shoulder. To be honest, it's not a bad look. It's kind of an interesting look. And it goes to your question earlier. If that's what you're after, if you're after the international man of mystery, well, you got it right there, right? Because you can't really even see his face. Well, he's a little too mysterious. You're making me nervous. So we are going to add some reflector action into that. Okay. This is a reflector arm. You can buy these. Most camera stores have them. And it just makes it a lot easier if you're doing a one-woman show or a one-man show. You don't have an assistant in the studio. It makes it a lot easier to move. You don't have to call someone up to hold it for you or have it balanced on a chair. Okay. There we go. We'll do that right there. So you can see I've got the light from up high, and then I've got the reflector down a little bit lower. We'll see what this looks like. It might be a little bit too much light from below on the reflection, so I might end up going a little higher. We'll see. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Kind of have the blue steel. It's like your look. The one look. Yeah. Okay, that did not add a whole lot of light back into the scene because I'm using white, right? I'm using white. So, how can I get more light? Well, let's try the silver. It's all good, all fun and games. And some of these decisions I'm making on the fly, I'm doing it on purpose just to show how they work. And other times I'm making mistakes, but I'm not letting you know when I actually make mistakes. But that's part of photography. And even pros, as long as I've been doing this, I kind of know the general effect that I'm after, but I very rarely get it on my first try. Very rarely. So when you do get it on your first try, it's always skill. That's what I tell everybody. Okay, great. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. And one more. Okay, and I already know what I'm going to do next. So I've got a little more light onto his face, but it's not quite bright enough. So what's one way I can get more light onto his face? I can shine more from the flash itself. What's that going to do? Well, it's going to blow off the top of his head. So this one I'm going to show you what it looks like to add more light onto his face. I have to actually reflect it that way and back again. But to use, well, you can handle it. He's somewhat follically challenged, okay? And so that's just the way it is. And if he had a full head of hair, this would not blow off the top of his head. But we have to worry about the skin there. Okay, here we go. Back up. There. Okay. And I increased the brightness of my flash by 1 stop, so now I'm around 1/4 power. And here we go. Nice job. We're going to get more light on his face, but as you'll see, we've probably lost any semblance of detail in his hair and on the top of his head. Not horrible. Not bad, but I have lost detail on the very top of his head. So this is backlighting, just so you know, and now you've seen it in real world practice. Real quick, let's get some feedback. What do you think? Do you like this look overall? Do you not like the look? Thumbs up, I see a lot of no's. No, okay, great. We do have a nice catch light in his eye though. That's a bonus, okay. Well, let's move towards more side lighting.